Much is known about the history of India, but there are still a number of things which are not properly documented. I plan to give you a glimpse into some of those. Let me start with a part of the history that you already know. You know that India was exporting a number of items which were highly coveted around the world. Gold jewelry, fashions in a way which was unimaginable, silver and gold embroidery. At a time when the world knew only how to beat metals, India was producing gold and silver thread which was being embroidered onto fabrics. Gems were being stuck onto fabrics. Fabrics that were colored in hues which the world had never seen. Gems which were cut in ways which seemed to flash fire. Also, spices of flavors which had never been seen before. These were the things which India was exporting along the Silk Route. The route extended from India into China as well as from India to England via Central Asia, the Arab countries. Arabs were the ones that dominated this route from India to England. However, India was exporting something which was even more precious, and that was knowledge. India exported knowledge to the Chinese, they exported knowledge to the Arabs, and the Arabs took it to the Greeks. This may be a little bit difficult for you to believe, so let me give you some evidence. Euclid had defined in his geometry that a point has no width or length or height. But this is exactly the same definition which is to be found in Bodhayan's Shulba Sutra. This Shulba Sutra is dated as 800 BC, while Euclid's elements are dated at 300 BC. That means that Euclid's elements are 500 years later than Shulba Sutra. Atom, as defined as something where you cut matter repeatedly till you reach the smallest particle, is attributed to a Greek called Leucippus, dated 450 BC. In our tradition, in the Vyas Bhashya of Yoga Darshanam, which is dated at 3000 BC, the same definition is to be found. Division by zero gives infinity is a relatively modern concept which has evolved in the 19th and 20th centuries. In India, it is to be found in Siddhant Shiromani of Bhaskaracharya, which is dated at 1180. Thus, India has been exporting knowledge for a long time. A number of things have a common source. Why does the Gregorian calendar and the Indian Panchang both have 12 months in a year? Okay, you could say that the lunar cycle is 28 days and the solar year requires 12 months according to that cycle. Look at the names of the months. You have September, Sept, Sapt, 7. October, Oct, Asht, 8. November, Nav, 9. December, Dash, 10. Are they the 7th, 8th, 9th and 10th months of the year? No. They are showing a different origin. Also, the July is named after Julius Caesar, while August is named after Augustus Caesar. On the other hand, in the Indian calendar, you have Chaitra, which is named after Chitra, which is the nakshatra, which is in the ascendant in that month. In Sanskrit, you will find that everything has a meaning. Nothing is meaningless. And so, all the months in the Indian calendar are named on the nakshatra, the constellation, which is in the ascendant at that time. Let us look at why there are 7 days to a week. Again, if you now look at the names of some of these days, Sunday, sun, day. In Sanskrit, it is called Ravi Vasaraha. Ravi, sun, Vasaraha, day. A direct translation. Monday is short for moon day. Somavasaraha. Som in Sanskrit means moon. Take Saturday. Saturday, Saturn day. Shani Vasaraha. Again, we can see the origin of the names and the week. Why do the West and the East share 12 zodiac signs? In forming horoscopes, Janmapatris, we use 12 zodiac signs, and these can be matched one to one. So you have Aquarius, which is Kumbh, Aries, that is Mesha, Leo, that is Singha. You can just put them next to each other and you will find that they match 1:1. Take the musical scales. You have 7 notes in a musical scale and there are 3 scales. The same notes and the same scales as exist in the Indian system. The major and the minor notes do differ to some extent, but the other notes, the main notes, they match frequency to frequency. The Indo-European family of languages are all characterized by the fact that there is a noun and a verb, a subject and an object, prepositions, adjectives, adverbs. In comparison, in contrast, if you look at the hieroglyphic languages which are different from this series, for example, the Egyptian language, the Japanese or the Chinese, each symbol, not only is it not an alphabet, it is not even a word. It is actually a picture which can depict a whole story. The concept of a noun, verb, subject, looking at the world in terms of objects and actions is actually a non-trivial abstraction of what you are looking at. And this is to be found in Sanskrit and all its sister languages. Once upon a time, everybody agreed that Sanskrit was the mother language. But today, that is being disputed. And people are saying, maybe Latin was older than Sanskrit, maybe Greek was older than Sanskrit, maybe Sanskrit came from Latin or from Greek. If that is so, then some explanation needs to be given for some of the words. For example, in Sanskrit we have a word called ahoratra, which you would have heard of. Here, this is composed of 2 parts. Ahana means day and Ratri means night. Together when we do a sandhi and make one word, it becomes ahoratra, meaning the 24-hour period. The Jyotish Shastras, Shastrajans of yore, they found this name too long, they had to use it too often. So they cut off A from the beginning and Tra from the end. And they shortened it to Hora. So in Jyotish Shastra we have a part of it being named as Hora Shastra. This Hora traveled to Greece and over there it was called Horos. Horos meant time. Horology meant the science of time. Horoscope, which you read every day, has come from the same Horos. How is that Horos to be explained unless we explain it from Sanskrit? But there are certain things which are definitely attributed to India. One of these is the science and art of yoga. I call it the art of yoga because modern medicine, though it is highly advanced, has not been able to discover how the yogasanas work. If we look upon it merely as a stretching of muscles, then it is difficult to explain how it can cure peptic ulcers, blood pressure, heart attacks. The thing is that the approach of Indians was different. They looked upon the body as a whole. They had a holistic approach. While the Western science looks upon the body as systems. You have the alimentary system, you have the nervous system, you have the circulatory system. These do interact with each other, but the interactions are not so well understood. Yoga and Ayurveda understood these interactions, and that is why they were able to come out with methods which are not even understood today. Let me tell you about a modern discovery. The Council of Scientific and Industrial Research of Lucknow, in collaboration with Gau Vigyan Anusandhan Kendra of Nagpur, discovered that cancer medicines, when consumed in conjunction with cow's urine, increase the efficacy of the drug, making it possible to reduce the dosage of the drug. As you're aware, cancer drugs are famous for having terrible side effects. So if we can reduce the dosage by half, we are reducing the side effects by half. This has received a patent from the US. India is also attributed for the discovery of zero. In Sanskrit, that is called Shunya. Actually, if we follow words, many times we are able to see the origin of knowledge. In Sanskrit, it is called Shunya, which in Arabic became Sifra, which in Latin became Zephyrdum. From Zephyrdum, we get zero. Einstein said, "We owe a lot to Indians who taught us how to count, without which no worthwhile scientific discovery could have been made." Einstein was only a physicist, he was not a historian, but he could see from where numbers were coming. Actually, numbers were coming from the Vedas. Let me tell you something about the Vedas. Vedas are the most revered books of the Hindus. They are four in number: Rig, Yajur, Sam and Atharva. Rig Veda is believed to be the most ancient book of humanity. Vedas contain all knowledge that is relevant to human beings in seed form. What do I mean by seed form? It is not a manual, it does not give designs in details, but it is like a starter which starts you off in a particular direction. It tells you, look there, and starting from there, you can proceed, and if you plant that seed in your brain, it can lead to a forest of knowledge. Let me give you an example. Vedas describe numbers. They describe the decimal system and the place value system of writing numbers. Place value means that where you place the digit gives its value. For example, 1 in the unit place means 1. In the tens place, it becomes 10. In the hundreds place, it becomes 100. And in the 1000s, it becomes 1000. This also came from the Vedas. This system of notation was so powerful that it led to the Shulk Sutra, which I mentioned earlier, in which what we call the Bodhayana Sutra today, which is known as Pythagoras' theorem to all of us in general, is to be found. Again, Bodhayana Sutra is dated at 800 BC, while Pythagoras' theorem is of 500 BC. That means 300 years later than that. Let me give you an example of a Vedic mantra which shows the decimal system. Here in this mantra, we can read Eka, Dasha, Shata, Sahasra, Ayutam, Niyutam, etc. These are all powers of 10. 10 to the power 0, Eka, 10 to the power 1, Dasha, 10 to the power 2, Shata, and so on. This is pointing towards the decimal system. The Vedas is saying, don't use 8, don't use 6, don't use 12 as your base for counting, use 10. This goes all the way up to Parardha. Parardha stands for 10 to the power 17. But consider, you have 1, 10, 100, 1000. Then the next name we have is a million. 10 to the power 6, 10 to the power 9, trillion. After 10 to the power 9, we really don't have a name. And we start saying gazillion. Our old Sanskrit Ajnas knew each power of 10 up to the 10 to the power 17 personally by a name. Also, of the period that we are talking about, this was such an amazing feat that I must give you a quotation from Al-Biruni, who followed Mahmud of Ghazni in 1000 AD. He was Mahmud of Ghazni's bard. In those days, these bards used to follow the invaders and they used to record the history, the invasions of the invaders and so on. Al-Biruni happened to have a scientific bent of mind and he recorded also scientific facts. He says, I have studied the names of the orders of the numbers in various languages with all kinds of people with whom I have been in contact and have found that no nation goes beyond the 1000. The Arabs too stop with the 1000. Note here the emphasis on Arabs. Arabs were supposed to be the next most intelligent. For the West, they were considered extremely intelligent. Those who go beyond the 1000 in the numeral system are the Hindus. They extend the names of the orders of the numbers until the 18th order. The 18th order that is 10 to the power 17, is called Parardha, that is the half of heaven, or more accurately, the half of that which is above. Let me give you a quotation from another great French scientist, Pierre-Simon Laplace, circa 1800 AD. He says, how grateful we should be to the Hindus who discovered the great decimal system that did not occur to the minds of such mighty mathematicians as Archimedes and Apollonius. Let me now tell you about some advances in Indian astronomy. We knew long back from ancient times that there were at least 6 planets, that they revolved around the sun under the gravitational attraction of the sun. In fact, the gravitational attraction of the sun is even mentioned in the Vedas. We knew about the rotation of the earth. We never had a problem about the earth being flat. We always seemed to have known that the earth was round. We knew something about the revolution of the sun in the Milky Way. We knew the revolution period of the planets to a very high degree of accuracy. That is why Saturn was known as Shani, because Saturn goes extremely slowly. It is the slowest of all the planets, and it completes a revolution around the sun in 29.5 Earth years. In Sanskrit, slow is translated as Shaneh. And from Shaneh, we have got Shani. Similarly, Jupiter is called Guru because Guru stands for large, and as we know, Jupiter is the largest of all the planets. Let me now tell you about some more modern inventions. We know that the Wright brothers flew the first plane of mankind in 1903. Let me tell you a story about an engineer of Indian origin who lived in Mumbai. His name was called Shivkar Bapuji Talpade. He was very influenced by Swami Dayanand Saraswati, who was the founder of Arya Samaj and the reviver of Vedas in modern times. He had written 2 books, Satyat Prakash and Rigveda Adi Bhashi Bhumika, where he had interpreted a number of Vedic mantras in a scientific fashion. And he had described aeroplanes and submarines. Shivkar Babuji Talpade was very much fascinated by this, and he discovered an ancient text called Yantra Sarvasva, which was written by sage Bharadwaj. There were a number of aeroplanes described in that and a number of other instruments as well. He picked up one which was based on a mercury iron engine. He built that along with his wife. He called that plane Marutsaka. And in 1895, he took it to the beach of Chowpatty to demonstrate the plane. The plane was an unmanned machine. It took off. There was a huge crowd on Mumbai Chowpatty. In the crowd, there was the Maharaja of Vadodara, Sir Sayaji Rao Gaikwad. Also, there was Justice Govind Ranade of the Mumbai High Court. They saw the plane take off. It flew and rose to a height of half a kilometer and then automatically came down. This event was reported in a Marathi daily of that time called Kesari. However, India was under the British at that time, and Shivkar Bapuji Talpade had put all his resources to build that small plane. He could not carry his research any further. Rumor has it that his plane, parts of his plane, was sold in London at an auction house. So 1895 is 8 years before the Wright brothers' flight. In fact, more surprisingly, Swami Dayanand Saraswati in his Rigveda Adi Bhashi Bhumika has interpreted a Vedic mantra as saying that take a metallic wire, make sure that the metal has been cleaned thoroughly, it has been purified, draw it out into a wire and then run electricity in it. Beat the wire at regular intervals. Here, the Sanskrit word taran is actually not to be interpreted directly as beating, but as amplification of the current at regular intervals so that the electricity can be carried for long distances. Now this Swami Dayanand Saraswati has written in around 1870. At that time in 1844, the first telegraph had been sent in Boston, and the first telephone call was made in 1876. But these events were so contemporary, and in those days the media did not function the way it does today, and news did not travel so quickly. So it's difficult to believe that Swami Dayanand Saraswati knew about these contemporary achievements. So it's really amazing how he knew about these things and how he interpreted the Vedic mantra in such a fashion. In fact, one of the most environment friendly things which Indians used to do and for which we are very much maligned is Agnihotra or Homa or Yajna, which I talked about earlier. The Britishers called it fire worship, and they made fun of us, and they said that these Indians, they worship inanimate objects. But we were not worshipping fire, we were worshipping God through fire. And it is now being discovered that the havi which is put in the fire of the homa, actually it breaks up, and the reduced particles of it, they climb on to the ghee, you can say. Ghee acts as a medium on which it travels. The vapor rises into the atmosphere. The havi particles combine with the toxins present in the air, and they neutralize it. They even rise up to the clouds and purify the water in the clouds. In fact, they can even start a cloud. They seed the formation of a cloud. The water that comes down with the rain, further, it removes the germs from the soil. So the yajna actually performs multiple functions, multiple levels of removal of toxins, of pollutants from the air, the water and the soil. A big example of this happened during the Union Carbide tragedy on December 3rd, 1984 in Bhopal. There was a teacher called Shri S.L. Kushwaha who knew about the power of Homer. So when he felt on the night of December the 3rd some clutching in his throat, and he realized that there is some problem in the air, he closed the windows and doors of his house, and he started doing a havan. Very soon, the air inside his house was cleared, and his family survived while the people around him were dying. In conclusion, I would like to say that there are a number of misconceptions which have crept in about our traditions. I have given you certain examples. We need to analyze our traditions before we reject them, and we need to preserve the values in a world which is becoming more and more westernized. Also, I hope I have managed to convey to you that a lot of knowledge remains hidden in the texts which are available to us from our hoary past. And these contain knowledge which is not only known today, but also knowledge which is still not known. We need to research this and prove it scientifically and bring it out to the world.